And my background is in psychotherapy training and in NLP training. And I was a training internationally in NLP. That was my life, my work. And I considered the spiritual domain the unknowable. I was raised in a home with the religious tradition, but I myself considered the spiritual unknowable. So I thought, well, it'd be really nice, but I don't know how we can ever really understand this. So I devoted myself to learning about things that were possible to understand, which was, to me, the psychology field and the NLP field. Then what happened for me is that because of several life crises, and one in particular, I was sort of propelled into this, just knowing whatever I knew, it wasn't enough. I somehow needed to go deeper, farther. So what was happening, I won't describe all the detail of it, but what was happening for me is I was having a crisis on all the levels, relationship, physical, but what was most disconcerting for me was the physical the physical crisis. I really thought I was dying, and things seemed to be falling apart. My body seemed to be falling apart. I was experiencing this intense electricity going up my central column 24/7. It was super intense. It never stopped. And it was completely disrupting anything. I couldn't think. I couldn't do much of anything. And I didn't understand what it was, but I thought maybe this was dying, That's all I could make out of it. And so it was really intense. I didn't know what to do about it, but I just knew that what I knew so far about change, it wasn't enough. And that if there was any chance of surviving for me, I would somehow need to open myself to being taught, to learning what I didn't yet know. So that's what I attempted to do. And I thought, since I know all about, I at that point, I knew a lot about the psychology. I knew about alternative things, including NLP. I pretty much knew everything that was out there at the time in the personal growth area. It's funny to say that now. It seemed possible at the time to actually know everything that's out there. Now there's so many things. I don't think it's even possible. Anyway, I thought, I'm going to investigate the spiritual area. I don't know much about that. And so I began investigating not spiritual theories, but experience. So I was interested in people, these awakening experiences that especially people coming from Eastern traditions sometimes described. This kind of shift that in consciousness, where people talked about having this shift into feeling a well-being, a kind of well-being that's I don't know, that's sort of beyond, that changes everything. And the ones that were most interesting to me were the ones who described this shift in well-being, this shift in consciousness that not only provided this sense of ease and everything's fine and peace and stillness, but also they described it changing, problems falling away, changing things on a practical level too. That was more interesting to me. Like, if we can have a well-being that's blissed out and we're just sort of in this altered drug state that doesn't help us in life, I wasn't so interested in that. What I was more interested in was the kind of transformation one could have that also changed everything about how we live our life. Maybe in a simple way, the Zen teachers used to talk about, and still talk about, what happens after, before awakening, you chop wood, you carry water, all of this stuff. What happens after awakening, you chop wood, you carry water. So it's this sense of simplicity and yet ease that I could see consistently coming through in the writings of what seemed to be the true teachers. That's what interested me. So this led me to sit in many spiritual circles, attempting, I thought, read books. And the way I was attempting to get this at first was by osmosis. This it's like, okay, if I'm in the same room with somebody who's got this, maybe it'll come to me too, maybe it'll stick. And that's what a lot of people were doing in those spiritual circles. I met a lot of co-journeyers, other people also interested in having this for themselves and hoping that if we would just sit here, it would be catching, kind of like a positive virus. We would get it. But I was also noticing that it didn't tend to work that way. That oftentimes people would be sitting in a spiritual circle and having this nice state, but then leaving and going home, and it's like all the same problems were there. The difficulties in relationships, the emotional triggers, the so on, the wounding from childhood. It wasn't resolved. So, that kind of concerned me. And then gradually, I didn't set out to do this. I didn't do it on purpose. But gradually, what started coming to me is a way of modeling spiritual experience that's more precise. And that is what resulted in the wholeness work. And without explaining more about the history to you, I'd like to just begin guiding you in a beginning experience. And because that's where the rubber hits the road. That's what matters. And so, are you ready? Like I start getting excited when I talk about this because it kind of feels like a calling for me now to share it with other people. When it first came to me, it was I really had given up teaching. I didn't expect to ever go back to it. I kind of thought, okay, what is my life going to be now? Maybe I'll be a gardener. Maybe I'll be a cook. Maybe I'll teach music lessons. But I didn't actually think I would go back to teaching. And then it's only after experiencing myself how the wholeness work mattered for me that I started sensing, I think this is something, I need to share this. I think it's my calling to share this. So that's when I started doing, then I started going, okay, what is it? How do I put this into words? How do we make it learnable? So here we go. Let me start with the background idea. I noticed, as I'm sure many of you have also noticed, the key teaching in Eastern spirituality about awakening or enlightenment seems to be, everyone agrees, it happens when we dissolve the ego or we let go of the ego somehow. So everyone agrees on that, and people can kind of try to do it mentally. But my thought was, it kept coming to me. Some of the spiritual teachers would say, there's no steps for this. It just happens. And I believed that for a while, but also at the back of my mind, I think because of my NLP background, the back of my mind, there was always this question, this curiosity, might it be possible for this to be something that anyone could do? Maybe there's a science behind this. Maybe there's a precise method behind this when this happens, this dissolving of the ego. And I thought, well, if we're going to let go of the ego or dissolve it, first we have to know what it is, right? And so that was the first thought. And the first answer that came to me, what is the ego? Well, it's the I. Perhaps it's the I. The I is in almost every language, the subject of every sentence. There are a few unusual languages where it's different. But in English and most languages that you all speak, I'm guessing, we're continually saying, I this, I that. I'm going to solve this problem. I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to talk to my friend. It's I. So if we want a simple idea of what's the ego, perhaps it's the I. But in a way, we're really no farther along yet, because how do we recognize what's an I? How do we find it? Will I recognize it if I'm walking down the street? And if we're going to be able to really change it, that becomes the next thing to know about. So that's what our exercise is going to be. We'll do a little exploration. This is what I did myself the first time I started doing wholeness work, and I'll guide you in doing it. It actually it's inspired by Ramana Maharshi, but it goes quite differently. So here we go. If you turn inward for a moment, and just get in a comfortable position if you're not already in one. Maybe take a deep breath. close your eyes, and then just take a moment to notice any body sensation. And it could be positive, negative, neutral. It doesn't matter what kind of sensation. Okay, I'm noticing something in my cheeks here, a little tingliness. And I also notice something behind my ribs, both sides, a kind of warmth there. You might notice whatever you notice. If you notice two things like I did, just pick one of them for the exploration that we're going to be doing. Any one of them. It might be something, a sensation in your abdomen. It could be a tension somewhere, a tingling somewhere, a warmth somewhere, or even just the feeling of where your body contacts the chair you're sitting in, just the feeling of pressure there. Any sensation at all. And then when you've noticed the sensation, just take a moment to notice how much space it takes up. Notice the area that it takes up. So for me, if I'm going to go with the warmth inside my rib cage, it's like it's two little globs that are on either side of my body, just inside, underneath the ribs. They're about this big, like the size of two prunes or two plums. So notice what you notice. Notice where it's located, notice its size, its shape, and then sense in and through a little bit and notice the sensation quality in and through the area. And by sensation quality, I just mean there might be a sense of warmth or coolness. There might be a sense of rawness or roughness or smoothness. It could be a tingliness, a sense of pressure, a pulling, a swirling. It could be a sense of fluidness or of dryness. Whatever you notice, it can just register the actual sensation quality in the area itself. Is everyone able to do this so far? Did anyone have difficulty? If anyone has difficulty and you'd like a little input on how then to do it, you can just raise your physical hand. Okay, so Gunther, can you unmute and yourself and then?
Yes.
Yes, Gunther, great. Hello.
Hi.
So is it difficult? So tell me what's happening.
I was having the sensation in my neck,
Mhm.
and then I got somehow stuck with what you were saying, and I couldn't deal with it further. Maybe it was just too fast a bit. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes. Let's take a little time with it then. There, you've got a good start. You notice this something in your neck. That's perfect. And so you notice where it is, and you notice how much space it takes up. So is it the whole neck? Is it more on the left or the right?
Yeah.
And it's generally a little different than the neck itself. It's likely to be either a little, the subjective experience is likely to be a little smaller or a little bigger, maybe a little forward or a little back. And you can just notice the sensation where it feels it's in the neck. And yeah, exactly. And you can just kind of guess. You don't have to be sure of what you're finding. But for you, it feels like pretty much the whole neck. And then just sensing in and through, notice the sensation quality. And this might be, it's as if you could actually feel in and through, like you could stick your fingers in a bowl of pudding on the table. You know, if you could feel in and through the area, is it sort of a sense of dryness or roughness or moistness? Is there a sense of tingliness, a sense of pressure, rawness? Or maybe sometimes it's something you can't quite describe in a word. Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah, I think you're doing it beautifully, Gunther. So it's just perfect what you're doing. And even if you don't have a word for it, just sensing it is enough, like you're doing. Okay, thanks, Gunther. Thanks for sharing that with us. And so everyone else, you can notice this. Now, as you're noticing your sensation, you could say, and it would be true, I am aware of this sensation. Am I right? this is something you could say right now. You can think to yourself, I am aware of this sensation. So everyone does that right now, think on the inside, I am aware of this sensation, and just notice that the truth of that, I am right now in this moment aware of this sensation. So I am noticing the sensation here back behind my rib cage, and you are aware of whatever sensation you're aware of. So as you're thinking this thought, I am aware of this sensation, then we just ask on the inside, and where is the I who's aware of the sensation? Where is the I located? And just let there be a noticing of whatever location emerges. Yeah. Where is the I located? Now, for me, I get the sense of space right now, right in front of me. It's sort of right here, almost centered, maybe a tiny bit to the left. And it's like about this big, like the size of a grapefruit. And it's just a sense of space. There's not much in it. That's what happens for me. Would anyone else like to share what you've noticed so far? And if you're having where the I is located for you, you can. So Franziska, yeah, if you would, yeah, thank you.
Hi, yeah. So the sensation I had is like the tightness in my jaw. Mm-hmm. And when I ask myself, where's the I? It's like a space, let's say like this big. And it's part of the part that I'm aware of, that I'm feeling, but it's also a bit like outside. So it's like, yeah, it's a space
that's kind of inside, part outside. Yeah. Yes, beautiful. So now I'm going to ask you another question, Franziska, if you're willing, like if there's a sensing in and through this area of the I that you described here, that's inside and also outside, what is the sensation quality in and through the area? Is it just a sense of space, or there might be a sense of warmth or coolness, or there might be a sense of airiness or denseness or fuzziness or tingling? It could be anything.
I would describe it as it's pretty dense. So
it's pretty dense. Okay. Yeah, great, beautiful, perfect. So you're already noticing it can be quite different from one person to another. So, and however you find it is always the right thing for you. However I find it in the moment, this is always the right thing for me. So, Himamshu, do I say it right?
It's Himanshu, but my name is difficult to pronounce. You can call me him like Tim. That's okay.
Okay. All right. So welcome. And what do you notice?
Yes. So the sensation that I could notice the first was, I'm sitting in a chair. So wherever my weight is being felt, that's of course my buttocks, my back, and the armrests. And this is where the sensation is. And then when you said, where is this I feeling this? I also practice yoga. So I practice the yoga nidra, the meditational sleep. And therefore, I am also used to kind of looking down upon me from a distance. But this I started actually in the head. And it was like a hollow bubble, but bubble or balloon is rather not the right comparison, because it was changing in shape. And the moment I thought about where am I feeling myself, it could then wander to these parts of the body, and then later on start hovering somewhat above me to look down upon me. As to how I am feeling and how is the sensation.
Okay.
And who is this I feeling and how is it feeling?
Okay. Let me here. What I'm going to suggest is that for this, it's okay to make it simpler. to let it be simpler even than this. So it's really, you have lots of background experiences, and that, of course, influences us, whether our background experience comes from how we adapted in childhood, or from our meditation practice, or from anything else. Our background experiences got us here, but right now it's you here. And that's all that matters. And all that really matters is what happens when you ask the question inside. So when you notice, start with this pressure, that's beautiful. You notice the pressure, and then you go, where's I am aware of this, and you go, where's the I that notices? All you have to do is notice what location. And if it comes up high up, great. If it's in the head, great. And you don't have to even go on and make any sense out of it or add understandings or reasons for it. Just to notice where it actually is located. That's all you need to do for this. Is that okay? So then when you find it, where is it? If you go, where's the I located? Where is it right now that you find the I? And is it, you can tell me, is it like far above somewhere? Is it in the head? Where is it right now? When you go, I am aware of this sensation. Where's the I? Where is it right now?
I think it's rather in the forehead.
Rather in the forehead?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
beautiful,
Inside.
beautiful. So, and then just notice the size and shape.
Mm-hmm.
And then sensing in and through, as if you could sense in and through, as if there was a cloud in front of you, you could sense it. But inside, you can also sense, what's the sensation quality? Is there warmth or coolness, perhaps? Is there denseness or airiness? Could there be tingliness or vibratiness, or just space, or something that you can't? Yeah, go ahead.
It's a kind of emptiness.
Just a kind of emptiness.
You
So
can
there's
call it
just kind of a
space,
sense
yeah.
of the empty space. Great, beautiful, excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so you can see now how each of us has a different answer to the question. When we go, where's the I? We find it in a different place. Does anyone want a little help in finding it? Were you all able to find something for you? If you want a little help, you can raise your hand. Raise the physical hand, the icon hand. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is let's go back to the question again. So if you haven't noticed something yet, you can guess, or you have this other extra time to find out. And first, let's find out what Luis, what he has to say. Yes, go ahead, Luis. If you could, yeah.
Hi. It's just I felt a pressure on my head. It goes from the back to the eyebrows, and as I was noticing it, I noticed that it was both outside and inside my head. And as I was putting attention on it, I felt pain. The sensations, I identified specific points of pain.
Yes. And for this,
I don't know if
we're going to even leave off words like pain, because those are interpretation words. We're going to just notice the sensation itself. So the sensation here, it is like pain, yeah. But then just noticing the sensation and going, I am aware of the sensation. Where's the I that notices? Did you find that?
Okay. Yes, and that's another thing that I doubt if I'm making it up, because when I find it, it's just like the rest of the body, like the complementary part of me. And they say,
Okay.
I'm making it up, or you know what I mean?
Here we can again make it simpler. It can be simpler. You don't even have to be concerned, are you making it up, not making it up? It doesn't matter for this.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. So what you can do, though, is let's start fresh and find out what happens. If you start with the sensation, is it in your head? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah, the sensation you start with is in the head. And it's the sensation and what's the sensation like? Is it rawness, tingliness, heaviness, denseness?
Yes, like pressure.
Pressure. Yeah,
yes,
pressure.
like sand, something like sand.
Excellent. And as there's a noticing of this pressure, you could think on the inside, I am aware of this pressure. And where is the I that notices? And just what location comes right away without thought?
Okay.
And what comes
try
for
it
you right now?
Okay.
Yeah. Sensing this, like pressure. I am aware of this. And where's the I that notices? And just what comes quickly without thought?
It's like inside my head and my chest. Like,
Inside my head and chest. Perfect.
yes.
Yeah. So I can see by your gestures, and then sensing them through this area that's inside your head and chest. What's the sensation quality? Is it airy? Is it dense? Is it warm? Is it cool? Is it rough? Is it?
It's like a bit dense. Something like jelly could be.
Yeah. Great. Perfect. Okay. So that's beautiful. So I think that is enough I thank you for everyone who's volunteered to share your experience. And I think this gives us a sense of the range, how everyone is different. So the I that you find might be inside the body. It might be outside the body. If it's outside the body, it might be close. It might be far away. It might be small, it might be big. It might have a really definite shape, or it might have a very diffuse shape. It could be anything, and we just invite a noticing of whatever it is. Okay, now to make sure everyone has this chance to notice the I, I'd like you to go back to the sensation. So notice the sensation itself. Take a moment to really sense it again. Okay, here is this sensation here in this location, and I am aware of this sensation. And then we ask on the inside again, and where is the I that notices? Where is the I that's aware of this sensation? And just without having to understand it or make sense out of it, just notice what location comes into awareness. Could be inside the head, inside the body, outside the body. It could be anywhere. And just go with that. And it's okay to guess. If you're not sure, it doesn't matter. It's fine to guess. Okay, beautiful. And so whatever, and if you can even pretend to be doing it. You can even pretend that you know. Like Milton Erickson used to say, you can pretend anything and master it. And it works with this too. So sometimes I get great results by just pretending that I know for myself. So, okay, great. So when you find the I, then sense in and through to notice the sensation quality. And as it might be airy, it might be dense, it might be warm, it might be cool. It might have some kind of sensation quality you can't really put into words. And it doesn't matter that you have a word for it. The only thing that's important is just to take a moment to actually sense in and through that the intention is to register the sensation itself. So for me and mine, it's just sort of like, okay, a sense of space, a bit airiness, and then that's pretty much all it is. Sometimes I find things that are more dense, more raw, I find all kinds of things inside. So if you do the exercise again at a later time, you might find something different, but just notice what you find now, today. Beautiful. And now we're going to put that on hold for a moment because we're going to explore something else. So far, we have explored, we take this sentence, I am aware of this sensation, right? We've explored the sensation. We know where it's located in experience. We know what the sensation quality. So we know the sensation is in experience. Then the I am aware of the sensation. We've explored where the I is. We know its size and shape. We know its sensation quality. So we found the I in our experience. Then there's this middle world, awareness. I am aware of this sensation. So let's take a little time to explore what is awareness. And this I had to learn. People I guided taught me that everyone seems to have a different experience for awareness. If we just just go with what people already are experiencing. But there's a particular way of experiencing awareness that's effective for this way of working, for this kind of work. So I'm going to guide you in that right now. It's easy to experience. It's very simple. So when I'm using the word awareness in this process, as we're going to be doing it, it means the capacity to experience. But without understanding anything right now, if you know that awareness is in and through your body. If awareness wasn't there, you wouldn't have been able to find that sensation that you started with, right? It's there. If something bumped you on the knee, you would sense it automatically. It wouldn't be that you'd have to send your awareness there. Go, oh, I think something's maybe bumping me on my knee, so I better send awareness over there and check it out. No, it's that the awareness is already there. There's already awareness through the whole body. And this is easy to experience in this moment, this awareness that's through the body, this capacity to experience that's already through the body. And then awareness is already in the space all around also. So there's space to the left, to the right, in front, in the back, above. There's space in all directions. If there's a sound coming from the left or a sound coming from the right, there's an automatic receiving of the sound, right? If you had someone calling your name from one side, there would be an automatic noticing. If someone called your name from the right, there'd be an automatic noticing, right? If from any direction you hear that, and there's an automatic receiving of the sound without effort. And that's because awareness is already present through the space all around. And we can find this as true visually also. So with eyes open, we can see space all around, in front and to either side. And even without eyes in the back of our head, we know that space also is in behind us too. We know space is in every direction. And even with eyes closed, we have this experience of space all around in every direction. And there really isn't an edge or border to this experience, the subjective experience of space that's in all around in every direction. I could know intellectually that if a sound happens on the other side of the world, I'm not going to hear it. I can know that mentally. But in terms of my subjective experience right now in this moment, I can't find any line where if I could say, okay, if on this side of the line, the sound happens, I would hear it. And on the other side of the line, I wouldn't hear it. I can't find an edge or border like that in my subjective experience. So, and that's important. It's significant because the sense of space all around in our subjective experience, there's no edge or border. So if we could pause to just experience that in this moment right now, it's like, okay, maybe with eyes closed, just notice this awareness that's already through the body, all through the body, and this awareness, this capacity to experience that's in the space all around, this experience of space in every direction simultaneously. And just notice that. Yeah. And then we all come back, if we all come back to now we're going to return to that I that each of us found. So if you return to the I that you found, notice again where it's located, and notice especially, take a moment to again sense in and through for the sensation quality. And it doesn't matter what the sensation quality is, it's just that we're sensing what it is. So sensing the roughness, the coolness, the airiness, the denseness, the tingliness, the warmth, the coolness, whatever it is, the motion, the stillness, whatever it is, just sensing that. Now I'm going to invite you to do a little experiment, and you don't need to understand it, to just allow the words to go in, let yourself experience it however you do without effort. And that is this. So noticing the sensation of the I, the sensation here. Notice what happens when the sensation of the eye is invited to open and relax as the full field of awareness that is all around and throughout. And then just allow whatever happens easily to happen, just letting it happen. If nothing happens, it's fine. If a little bit something happens, it's fine. If something more happens, it's fine. Whatever, however it happens is fine. So, and if you want to try it again, I'm going to say it again. So sensing in and through the sensation of the eye, notice what happens when the sensation here is invited to open and relax in and as the fullness of awareness that's all around and throughout. And then just to allow whatever happens to happen. Yeah. And then whenever things settle, then you can let your eyes open. But you can take all the time you like with it. It's nice to just stay inside and let things happen as they do until things naturally settle. And then when that happens, you can just let your eyes open. And then I'm going to start asking people for whom things have settled to share, what was that like? What was your experience like? And so if you'd like to share your experience of that, you can raise the physical hand icon to let me know. And perhaps we let people take a little more time with it, just letting. And, you know, and if nobody feels like sharing just yet, I'm going to ask a couple of questions and let you raise physical hands for the answer. How many of you noticed something changed from that? Something shifted? Maybe it's subtle, you know, if you would raise your physical hands. Okay, that's quite a lot of you. Yeah, but not everybody. No, the first time I did this, I want to say, the first time I tried this, the response I noticed was so subtle. I wasn't really sure if anything was happening or not. And it's whatever happens, including if nothing happens, what I've learned from now that I understand the whole wholeness work system, whatever happens is actually the right thing for you. Sometimes the right thing for me or you or any of us is that nothing happens. That's sometimes the perfect thing. There's a reason for that. And we get to that when we get into the afternoon of the first day of the foundation training, what that means and what we do, because we never push for anything to happen with wholeness work. We're always doing what's gentle, what's easy, what's effortless. But it's interesting, even with this really simple exploration, without any more background than this, quite a few of you did notice something. And now I'm just going to ask a show of physical hands. For how many of you was there a subtle relaxation? Did it feel okay? And I'm seeing a lot of hands on that. That is the most common, the most typical reaction or response when we do this. It feels relaxing. And we get into more about what is happening, why that's relaxing and what is happening a little bit later. And I'm going to have time for some of that today. First, I'm going to give the opportunity if anyone wants to share individually what it was like for you, because while we could say, yeah, it was a little relaxing, the individual experiences can be quite unique. And sometimes it's just interesting to hear how it went. So Nikki, you haven't spoken yet. I'm going to invite you if you'd like to share your experience. And then Stephen, we'll get to you too.
For me, it went from being like a hard almond type sensation in my forehead to being to starting to froth and bubble and fizz.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Things happen on the inside that we could never make up if we tried. Who would have anticipated that, right? And yet, this is a beginning of what I'm calling integration. And integration in wholeness work has a little different meaning than it does in most kinds of psychology or even most NLP. And we can talk about that a little later too. So, okay, thanks, Nikki, for sharing that. Yeah, so interesting. And Stephen, what was your experience?
My eye was floating like a plate in space, and I nearly fall asleep.
Okay. Yes. And this might be a clue as to how and why wholeness work has helped a lot of people who've had lifelong sleep difficulties. All kinds of sleep issues have responded well to wholeness work. It tends to result, one of the results tends to be a deep kind of relaxation, a resetting of the nervous system, and it makes it easier and natural to slip into sleep. And this is something we get into more specifically in a lot more detail with more tips and pointers in the afternoon of the foundation training, the first training. So this goes a little beyond what is in the wholeness book, but we do cover it in the training. You know, many of you are getting right into the next steps. Well, what's next after this? And so you're kind of your system is this sort of thinking ahead. That's beautiful. So thank you for raising that. And so now what I would like to do is go into offering you some frames for what is happening here. How do we understand this? How do we make sense out of this? And so here's how I think about this. When we all are born into the human form, we all start off as babies, right? Anyone start off as something else? I think we all started off as babies. So, and babies, if you've been around babies recently, or even a long time ago, I've been around Jack and I were just talking earlier about how now we have grandkids. So some of us have been around our grandkids. Some of us have been around our children. We have young children. And if you don't, and some of us have friends who have children or relatives who have children, or you've seen a kid in a grocery store, for heaven's sakes, we've all been around kids, right? We've all been around newborns, and newborns are quite interesting. They have this open-eyed wonder expression, right? Right? Can you all identify that in your experience of having seen a newborn? And I think this is why people love to be around babies, as long as they're not crying or screaming or needing food, right? I mean, there are times when we all want to escape too. But if they're warm, dry fed, and they've had enough sleep, you know, and they have this wide-eyed wonder look. And why is that? Why do newborns have this? They don't break their gaze either. They don't look away from us in embarrassment or like, okay, I think that's enough eye contact, I'm going to look the other way. They're just right there with this newborn presence that's quite lovely. And the reason for this is that newborns don't yet have any sense of I. They don't have an I inside. They don't have a sense of separate self. And if you've been to graduate school in clinical psychology like I have, then you got training in that, right? Developmental psychologists will tell you, excuse me. Developmental psychologists will tell you that newborns don't have a separate sense of self, that to a newborn, they don't know the difference between themselves and their mother's breast. They don't know the difference between themselves and the sandwich on the table or the carpet. To the newborn, it's just experience happening. There's just this flow of sensation, color, sound, light. It's just a flow of experiencing happening. And there's no division between, oh, that's me and that's not me. So the newborn has the experience that's more like the openness that we're accessing when we experience awareness, the field of awareness just a moment ago. It's more like that, this sense of space that's everywhere at once. Now, as we develop, though, we get a sense of separate self. We develop a sense of I. And developmental psychologists have all kinds of data about when that happens and how that happens and so on. We don't need to go into that for our purposes here, but we know that it does happen and it's functional. It's important that I really know that I'm not the same as the sandwich on the table. Because if I feel hungry to be functioning as a human being, I need to know that I'm not the same as a sandwich on the table. The sandwich on the table is external to me. I need to actually pick it up, chew it, digest it, so that I can satisfy my hunger. So it's very practical, functional knowledge that I am not the same as the context around me. So it's practical, it's useful, it's essential to survive on the planet. But who would have ever thought that we would develop this sense of I the way we do? Who would have thought that the I's that we form at the unconscious level are like what we just found when we did this little exercise? That basically when we went and found, okay, where's the I that's aware? Where's the I that notices? We were finding all kinds of things. I found something here. Some of you found something behind you, some in the head and chest. It could be anywhere. But what is the common thread is that all of these I's that we found were smaller than this full field of awareness, right? They were all smaller in some way. So in a way, it's like the I is like a fist. It's a contraction of consciousness, just the same way that the fist is a physical contraction of the body, of the muscles. The I is a contraction of consciousness. Now, it's not the whole thing. Now, this becomes really interesting because if we think about it, anytime we attempt to do anything in the world, if I attempt to solve a problem, if I want to talk to somebody, even if I go to have fun, it's always the I that is doing these things after we're a little older anyway, not for the newborn, but it's the I that is doing these things. And that means it's less than the whole of my nervous system. So this gets particularly interesting because if we ask the question, well, who am I really? What's my real nature? Who am I really? Like the philosophers sometimes ask, well, I'm not going to attempt to make a universal answer to that question or any definitive answer, but I think that it's easy to agree. It's easy to realize that whatever if there's some kind of final answer to that question, whatever the answer is to who I am really, it's definitely going to include my full nervous system. Surely it wouldn't be anything less than that full field of awareness that we were just noticing a little while earlier. And that actually felt a little relaxing to experience, right? So, and this is how it all begins to tie together, because the I's are actually a contraction of consciousness. And as they release and let themselves go back into the whole field of awareness, there's a relaxation that happens on the psychological, energetic, what do we call it? I don't know. But it's on the non-physical level. There's a relaxing that happens that's deeper than muscle relaxing. It's a relaxing of attention and effort that tends to happen before the muscles get tense. Because if I get tense in response to stress, the muscles are tensing, but the I that tenses, if that one relaxes, we get a massage before we ever go to the masseuse. It can still be really nice to get those massages, I just want to say. But it's also nice to have this way of just letting of relaxing the effort that happens at the psychological level, because then we're less likely to recreate the physical tension that we all tend to end up with at the end of a difficult day. So when the I's that tensed up relax, that dissolves stress at a deeper level. So that's sort of maybe getting a little bit ahead of myself here, a little bit ahead of ourselves, but that's to give you a glimpse of what we're doing and how and why it matters and makes a difference. Now, I mentioned earlier, the I is like a fist, a contraction of consciousness, like a fist on the physical level. Now, if we have a fist, when we form these eyes, it is like this contraction that starts as this effort that starts taking place. And they tend to stay in place. They tend, and the older we get, the more of them we have, which is, and then, so what happens if I form these eyes and this stress is happening and they don't relax? What happens if you try it out right now? If you put your hand in a fist, what happens if you leave this hand in a fist for a day, a week, 10 years, 20 years? You know, what starts to happen? That's like, right. I mean, I start to go, oh, I don't even want to think about that. It starts to it's a stress on my system. It uses energy. And we start to feel stressed out. We start to feel we have less energy for life. So now this is what happens with these eyes that we form inside. We are contracting our consciousness, creating a certain kind of effort at the unconscious level we didn't even know we were creating, but it stresses the system. Now, what happens then if we start getting more stressed out, we need help relaxing, we want to have to deal with the stress. So maybe I decide I'm going to go to a life coach, or I'm going to go to a therapist or something for help. Now, if I go to this life coach and therapist and I'm going, please help me, I'm stressed out, I don't have the energy I used to have, can you help with this? Now, the coach or life therapist or the therapist might give us lots of strategies for dealing with stress. They might be giving us good strategies to better deal with difficult people and relationships and so on. We might get a lot of good strategies. And yet, if the I remains in place, there's a certain tension, there's a certain stress to the system that's going to continue. So it's like we're working against that with the good strategies that we're learning. Whereas if our therapist or life coach knows how to help us find those eyes, release them, we're getting a release from stress at a deeper level. So that's just a really nutshell idea of where we're going with the wholeness work. I'm just going to pause for a moment to see if there are any questions that people have at this point, and then we can return to a little bit more exploring. And any questions you have or any sharings you want to bring up at this point. Okay, Tatiana. And I might ask people to also, if you have questions that come up that you'd like to put into chat, you can put them into chat, and I won't be reading them, but Angela and Nell and Susanna, they're going to be reading them and funneling some of them to me, as many as we have the time for. So Tatiana, yeah, go ahead.
So I'm trying to think about the I from a developmental psychology standpoint, and the fact that, a lot of the constitution of the I is about, kind of learned coping strategies. So what I have found, and I practice as a psychotherapist as well, is that the I becomes the resistor. So I'm really curious to how you work with that in that gentle, no pushing, no forcing anything way, because I think that offers a different way in to
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great question, Tatiana. Yes. And I love that question. And with this approach, it's like if we have a simple way to find the I and then to get to know it, it becomes a friend rather than a resisting. It will tend to resist if we try to bully it into doing something, to relax or something, to do even something nice like relaxing. If we bully it, if we try to produce force, it will resist. And that's a good thing. That's actually a good thing. But with the wholeness work, we find always the gentle way, the easy way. And the full answer to your question goes beyond what I can do in a half an hour. Because the reason, though, I wish I had the whole day now, but the way to really answer this, to do it justice, is to give you all an experience of how it works. Because then, once we know something in our experience, then it's really different than having the mental concept. But even in the book, Tatiana, there is the answer to that question. That comes in the book. It comes in the first day of the training. It's like how we work with it so it no longer is a resisting force. It becomes a source of nourishment, because what happens is that each of these eyes, one of the metaphors I use for the wholeness work is like, it's like composting. Basically, we're organic gardeners of the mind-body system. We're fine, and everything, all the organic matter we can find, when we know how to compost it correctly, it turns back into soil, which is wonderful medium for new growth. And it knows how to do that on its own. It's like when we put things into the compost pile, we don't have to mess with them really and force them to compost. The composting is natural. It happens in an effortless way. And it means that every single thing, nothing has to be gotten rid of, nothing has to be resisted, but we just learn how to compost it. so that it's this natural. And what someone else was talking about earlier, this hard almond was beginning to bubble. That's the beginning of the composting happening.
Lovely. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah, for raising that question. Does anyone else have a question you'd like to bring in at this point, or just sharing of something of your experience? Then, okay, I'll go on to speak a little bit about general benefits of wholeness. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, I'd like to go back a little bit more to the experience itself. Okay, well, I invited you. We did a really short, quick first few steps of wholeness work in what we just did. We found a sensation. We found the eye. We noticed accessed awareness. We invited the sensation of the eye to dissolve into awareness. So that's the first steps. It's a really short. It works for a lot of people. It doesn't necessarily work for everyone, because we need some more steps to make it more complete so that it will work for everyone. But now that we've had a few background ideas too, it's like we know what we're doing with the eye. It's like this fist, and when the awareness comes, it's like an invitation to relax the tension. That's all. And usually, like if our fist has been tight here for a day, week, even if for 5 seconds, if you tense your fist right here and pretend like you've lost track that you were doing it. But if you'd all do that just right now, tense your fists like this, but then imagine that awareness comes in, and it comes into the arm, into the hand. If awareness comes in, what wants to happen on its own without effort? Yeah. If awareness comes in, it naturally wants to release. Now, that's different than something else coming and trying to force it to release, right? With awareness coming in, there's this natural releasing that tends to happen. That's what we're doing with wholeness work. And the more we understand that, the easier it is to get the results. Because when we try to help the awareness along, okay, I'm just going to put a little effort into trying to make this release, that ends up getting in the way of things. But we can work with that too. It's not really a problem. So here's what we do with these understandings, understanding how it's not about adding effort to make something happen. It's about releasing the effort that was already there, just relaxing a little bit, letting it go on vacation, so to speak. So if you try if the eye already relaxed for you, the one you found before, do your best to put it back how it was before. And if it didn't relax, just notice how it is, how you don't have to fully put it back. However much you can put it back is fine. And then noticing the sensation of the eye, how it is now. Notice what happens now when you just invite this to open and relax and dissolve and melt as the fullness awareness. As awareness meets sensation, notice what happens as the sensation here is invited to relax in and as the full field of awareness. And just let that happen however it does. Yeah. You can take your time with that. And then I'm going to invite Yeah, letting that happen how it does. And then I just for how many of you was that a little bit more, did a little bit more happen the second time than the first? It does. Some of you will be no, did anybody find that a little more happened the second time? Okay, for some of you, yes, some of you no. Yeah. So I kind of like to do this because often the second time through, it's easy, just a little bit easier to experience it just a little bit more. Not always. And that just kind of shows that the more we practice and the more we understand what we're doing, the easier it is for our system to access. Our system starts really getting the hang of what we're doing. And it's kind of like riding a bike. At first it's like, well, damn, I'm not sure about how to get my balance here. And then as we practice a little more, we really start to get the hang of it. And then it starts happening more and more easily and more fully. The other keys for this to happen more easily and fully are the next steps, which are in the book, and then the steps beyond that, which aren't in the book, but are in the training. So this is something I wanted to say, to be sure I'm clear about, because sometimes when people come to this beginning first steps conversation, they kind of go, oh, okay, that's wholeness work. Okay, now I know what wholeness work is. And the thing is, this is just the first steps. There's so much more. This is the foundation. It's the building blocks. And then we go a lot farther. And these extra formats and extra principles that we start learning are what end up making it a complete method that ends up having the capacity to transform both a lot of really difficult emotional and behavioral issues that we may have been facing. So I've had many people say, I tried a lot of stuff with this issue I was working with. And finally, when I got to wholeness work, I'm getting somewhere now. And so it's having the full system that makes that kind of thing possible, and makes also possible that I think of wholeness work, it's this development on two levels simultaneously. We're developing with we're working at a deep level psychologically. It's like, because we're bringing in the information, the knowledge from the spiritual teachings, that we're able to go to a deeper level of change. We're actually dissolving structures that we might not have found before, might not have known were there before. And not only are we finding them, but we have this way of dissolving them into the whole. So that's what gives us the capacity to go to this deeper healing at the psychological level. And this is also what makes it possible to for the spiritual development. So some people come to wholeness work primarily interested in spiritual development, and some primarily psychological development. Most people like both, is what I'm finding. And so the spiritual development, it works more, it's like sometimes people who've been on the spiritual path for decades sometimes come up to me kind of excited after the first couple of training days, and they goes, wow, this is what the non-dual teachings are about. This is what Buddhist psychology is about. This is what, Advaita, this is what this, or whatever the tradition is. Because basically, yes, we're getting to what we could call a practical, a science of spiritual development. And true spiritual development, as I think about it, it's not separate from life. It's not different from emotional development. Spiritual development that lasts, that's really enduring, it's not different from the emotional healing and transformation. It all really works together. So
Connirae, there was a topic in the chat that I want to bring in, and the question was around the difference to working with parts. Like if the wholeness work is a parts work on a sensational level or an identity level, maybe you can speak a little bit about that.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. parts work, I think, is a lovely thing. And, one of my favorite methods, core transformation, I have its affinity with core transformation. I know some of you have background in that, and some of you on the call are even certified core transformation coaches. You've really taken this in depth. And, and I bow to that. I feel like core transformation is a sister method, a cousin method, brother, sister, whatever we call it. It's closely aligned with wholeness work in the principles behind it. In the method itself, it's completely different. We're approaching things in a different way. And that's what makes it useful to learn both of them. It's because so core transformation is a really deep kind of parts work where we go beyond just integrating parts with each other. The visual squash and NLP, you merge parts with each other. With core transformation, where it's more about letting the part integrate with the whole. So that's more similar to what we're doing with wholeness work, where we find an I and we invite it to dissolve into the whole of awareness. We're working with this beyond self, beyond identity level of experience. So in terms of parts work, when people learn wholeness work, what I always encourage people to do is as you're learning it, let go of all the other systems you've learned, even the systems I love, let go of those too. And so that we aren't trying to trap our new learning in the category. It's like, new wine and old wines. If there's some kind of metaphor about that, right? we don't want to trap our learnings with any previous assumptions or presuppositions. So if I don't use the language of parts when I do wholeness work and when I teach wholeness work, and it's important not to when we start, because if we start with the language of parts, there's this unconscious tendency without realizing it that we're kind of dragging in with us a different framework. And that is more likely to limit us than to help, especially as we're beginning the work. So I can say, yeah, it is a part, but it's a very unique and particular kind of part when we find an I. And it's different from what people usually think of it when they're finding parts inside. And we're just organizing, we're orienting ourselves in a different way. So I encourage people to just kind of let go of the language of parts, let go of all the other languages. I believe, I started this off by telling you about how I discovered wholeness work out of an experience of crisis in my own life. And in that experience, I was feeling desperate. I thought my life was on the line. And looking back, I think it was on the line. And so it was my desperation that made me willing to let go of everything I knew, but you all don't need to get desperate to do it, but the important thing is that I don't think I ever would have learned wholeness work. It wouldn't have come to me if I hadn't really let go of everything that I already knew, or done my best anyway, to really let go of my current understandings. It's not that those understandings aren't useful, or that they're wrong or anything like that. They can be really, really useful, wonderful understandings. But if we're orienting to learning wholeness work through the filter of those understandings, it's going to limit where the experience can go. And overall, wholeness work tends to take us, if we're open to it, it takes us to that world that's beyond what most of us have experienced. Into a realm. So many of my clients and the workshop participants describe this kind of thing. It's like, whoa, I didn't even know this was possible. And it's not a woo-woo. I don't want to leave you with the impression that this is kind of a magic wand solution and that people like everything is wonderful. It's not our idea of wonderful. When before we do the work, we tend to have a certain idealized view of what wonderful is like, and that itself tends to contain a lot of misunderstandings and constrictions. And as we do wholeness work, it tends to be a gradual and reliable process of, it's often subtle. It's not necessarily the bells and whistles. It's not all about the kind of thing you read in the spiritual accounts, like, wow, this breakthrough thing, waves of energy came through and then everything was different. That's not the expected thing in the daily practice. It does even happen sometimes through wholeness work. It happens fairly often, actually, but it's not a daily experience, and it's not where the real benefit is. It's if we keep our eyes on the bells and whistles, that's like the illusion of the magic trick rather than the real, what's important behind it. What's important behind the bells and whistles, behind the stuff that seems impressive, is the subtle shifting that happens to this kind of quiet well-being, this kind of that it gets to be beyond words, that people who take on the practice tend to have an increasingly deep appreciation for, in almost a quiet way. Okay, so that was a long answer. Angela, what's next?
First of all, I have to say I can echo that a lot. So for me, practicing the wholeness work since many years, it just goes deeper and deeper and beyond what I thought is possible. And I already posted the link to the training that you're doing in Europe in the chat, because sometimes people leave early and I don't want to miss to invite everyone here. I think the beauty of the work is really to experience it. And there are 4 different levels. So in case you want to learn more, please join us in September in Germany. And maybe for the remaining 10 minutes, Connirae, I have the feeling if you could talk a little bit about the very practical situations where people could benefit from the wholeness work. So around the benefits.
We've talked about the relaxation and resetting of nervous system and dissolving of stress. We've talked about that. We've talked about sleep. Relationships improve. We haven't really talked much about that, but many people, we specifically work with that in the first workshop, in the level 1, in the foundation training, applying it to relationship buttons. And we also this access to creativity and problem solving. And it is amazing how this natural sense of humor, it is amazing how many people start finding that in terms of relationship buttons, the things that used to annoy us, we start finding them amusing. It's like, it is amazing how often that comes up. It's happened for me in my life. And many times when I demonstrate methods, people will say that, now this thing that my partner did that really bugged me, it's just kind of funny now, and kind of endearing even, So we don't take, we don't take ourselves and our lives so seriously. Does this give a beginning of an answer to that, Angela? And I'm going to ask,
yes.
For me personally, as the more I started working with this, there isn't any area of my life it hasn't touched and affected in a good way. It helped me in my relationship with my husband a lot, just majorly, because I definitely was plugged in and irritated by a lot of things that he did. I thought he was being too judgmental and this, that, and the other. And the more I did this, the more I came to a kind of place of clarity where I could just talk with him without, if I thought he was being critical, rather than entering with my reactivity and counter criticism, of him, I would be able to more just go, this is, I'd appreciate it if you would speak to me like this. I'd so much like it. Or I would just tease him. He would say something, I could get the edge to it, but I would just tease a little bit. And then he would tease me back. And we would start to have a lot of fun with what could have been a difficult situation. So there's that. Now I want to also go, a lot of people are interested in limiting beliefs. When we find the eyes, inviting them to relax, a lot of the eyes are what hold the limiting beliefs. So without even learning what the beliefs are, they tend to dissolve and melt. And pain is one of the areas wholeness work gets really good results with. like sleep and pain. It's not 100% with pain. With sleep, it's close to 100%. With pain, chronic pain, it's not 100%, but it is. A lot of people have found it the best thing that they could find. And for some people who've had chronic pains, they've done wholeness work, and it's like a chronic pain that's been there for a long time. It literally disappears like right away, which is quite remarkable. That happens some of the time with wholeness work. And for other people, it's a reduction, or they need more a series of formats, not just one format, but the authority format, which is on day 2 of the wholeness training, tends to be very important with chronic pain or other kinds of pain for many people, not everybody.
Thank you very much, first of all, for this session. I feel we're all connected globally now from our living rooms, having had this common experience together. And I definitely want to invite you again. I think the beauty of your work lies in the experience and experiencing it yourself. And then maybe if you also work as a coach or therapist or give trainings or in whatever field you are, then of course also being able to apply it with other people is a really beautiful work. So I have posted the link for the trainings in Europe. And I will, Franziska, thank you. You have just posted the book. And we were also asked if we can post the trainings in the US, as there are some people here from the US. We will do that in a second as well. So you find all the links in the chat. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for being with us here tonight.
I just want to say thank you so much to you, Angela, for hosting and kind of creating this lovely living room space and vibe. And thank you to everyone joining in the call. Those experienced students who I love seeing you again, and then people I'm just meeting for the first time. I love beginning to meet you. This is for me the rich part. This is the fun. It's like interacting together with people and enjoying the changes together that we can make. I believe it's a special thing to be able to do this kind of deep level work, and it's a special thing to be part of a community of others too, that also for whom this is a priority and really believe in. I believe that the best gift we can give to ourselves and everyone in the whole world is to do the deep transformation in our own lives. And I love being part of a community where people are at least interested in some level of exploration. Maybe you just want to solve a stress. That's fine too. It doesn't have to be any big deal. So thank you very much. And if you want to know more, like Angela said, then join us in Karlsruhe in Germany. There, it's a unique chance to be there live in person. And that is so wonderful to just feel the energy of the group all together there live. We will have people from all over Europe and probably around the globe too. It will be all translated into German as we go. And there's going to be a significant English-speaking group of people there who are there specifically for the English part and who will be practicing together. And all of the coaches are fluent with English, and many fluent with German, and many other languages too. we'll have joining us. Okay, and if you're not quite ready for a live training, there's a live online training that you can get. You can join me and find that on andreasnlp.com. And the book is even easier to just start with. It gives you the next steps beyond what we're doing here, not the full steps of what we do in the training, but you get a little bit farther. Okay, thanks so much. Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Oh, and I just want to give a thank you also to the mentioned to the European Wholeness Association. Many of the members. Oh, I see, German, you're here, and Ola, you're here, and several more, I think, that I probably am not yet seeing on my screen are here from the European Wholeness Association. This group I am so thankful to. They have been just volunteering and dedicating a lot of time to helping bring this work to more people. And they are the hosts of the training in Germany. And yeah, just I bow. And Ralph, who couldn't be here, has been instrumental. Yeah, just a bow to everyone who's been a part of that team. Sonia, who you will be communicating with if you choose to ask questions and sign up, you know, and I think others of you are here too. Yeah.
Thanks.
It's been a wonderful energy in the group of people organizing around the work. Okay. Thanks so much, and have a good day, evening, night, depending on where you're joining from.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye.